Welcome back to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name is James Black and I'm joined by Jordan Carlisle, so we can have a wee look back at last night's fantastic 2-0 Europa League win against Standard Liege over in Belgium. The goals from James Tavernier were first half penalty and Kemar Roofe's stunning late injury time goal sealed a fantastic 2-0 win. It was the first time Standard have lost at home in Europe for 6 years, and surprisingly was Rangers' first away win in the group stages of Europa League under Gerrard. The game was, for want of a better word, seriously rain affected in the second half. There was a biblical shower that kind of almost pulled the game towards the end. And Rangers coped really well with it and managed the game, saw it out, and then kind of got the late sucker punch at the end. But overall, it was a really impressive performance coming off the back of last weekend's Old Firm win at Celtic Park. Rangers controlled the game every bit as much last night as they did on Saturday against Neil Lennon's side, and you can just see there's a lot of confidence in the Rangers team just now. So Jordan, just what was your initial thoughts in the game last night? You kind of impressed with the overall performance?
Yeah, it's a strange one because I think so outrageous was the goal at the end that sort of changed it's all anyone is talking about from the game, and it completely changes your perspective. You know, it could have been an absolute battering. Standard could have been hammering down the door, and then that goes in, it's 2-0, and it's the best performance of all time because it was so incredible. But I think I think it was really positive again. Standard didn't get a shot on target, you know, so that's 2 games McGregor's now watched through essentially. He obviously didn't get to the one that hit the crossbar, and that was a lot closer than Celtic came. But I was actually relatively impressed by Standard's play. You know, not overly sure what they're going to be like going into the game at the start of the season. Okay, domestically, and they're obviously missing a couple of players due to isolation and positive tests and stuff like that. But I actually thought they provided a bit more threat, and they got the ball down and played well early on. And then the fullbacks were dangerous, whipping decent balls into the box, which the centre backs again dealt really well with. But yeah, I don't think it was quite as straightforward as at the weekend. And there was that chance at the end where, as you've already talked about, the weather I think affected it slightly. The ball arrived into the back post, the guy completely unmarked, through a McGregor, and Rangers have him to thank for probably leaving with the 3 points for completely missing it. But yeah, I thought the midfielders did really well. You know, Ryan Jack sort of predictably coming back in the 11 and doing really well, and it was controlled well in the middle of the pitch with sort of work rate and good quality, and the centre-backs did well. Ryan Kent did really well as well. Probably a better job at holding the ball up than Morelos did, even though that wasn't specifically what he was told to do. And plenty of good performances throughout the team, and we'll probably come on to individuals as well, but Calvin Bassey off the bench was brilliant as well. So yeah, a really good start to the group, but an away win obviously is a rare commodity in the Europa League, and it's a brilliant start ahead of Pochettino at home next week.
There was a couple of changes to the start 11 from the weekend Old Firm one, with Leon Balogun, Ryan Jack and Yanis Hadji coming back into the start 11, with Phil Helland, Stephen Davis and Brandon Barker coming out. And I think we kind of picked 2 of those out in the predicted 11 before the game. Were you surprised to see Balogun come back in for Helander? Because for me, I actually thought Rangers looked a little bit weaker defensively for having Balogun back, and I think they didn't seem quite as composed, particularly the high balls coming into the box. I think Helander's positional sense, he managed was a little bit better, and you know, I just felt, particularly in the early stages of the game, there was a little bit of shakiness with Goldson and Balogun.
Yeah, well, I think Gerrard sort of said afterwards that Helander's carrying a bit of a kick at the minute, and it's a bit of a knock that means he could have played, but he decided to take him out. And I was surprised because that's sort of the arena where Helander's been so impressive since he came to the club. Just in the Europa League games in the past, sort of Porto away, and a couple of home games in the group, last season, he was absolutely excellent. And he does really well in there. As you say, his positional sense is key. He has less pace than Balogun, which I think we could sort of see the benefits of Balogun's pace a couple of times last night. But yeah, I was a little surprised by it. But I would say that there were a couple of hairy moments, but I also think that they were tested a lot more last night than they were at Celtic and in many other games this season. Balogun sometimes, I think, maybe looks, a bit more frantic than Hollander, who always sorts of seemed to be doing things at his own pace and reading the game so well. But Balogun offers pace, as I've already said, that is slightly different. And I think leaving him there with a clean sheet and Standard not having any attempts on target. Obviously, Goldson was beaten in the air by Maleka for the head of the crossbar, but I think it's tough probably to point too many fingers at them, when they've not conceded any shots on target. But I would say that I think Goldson Hollander's the best too, particularly for a big game. But I still think it was a strong defensive performance.
The two goals, we'll just go through the two goals themselves. The first one was a penalty for James Tavernier. Absolute stonewaller, yeah? No disagreements there? Yeah,
it's just it's one of those ones where I think there's probably a couple of instances in this, but I think for a while Rangers had a spell where they weren't really having much luck, and that sort of coincided with these slumps and stuff after the winter breaks. But things seem to be going for them at the minute, and that was a total gimme after a really, really even start to the game where I thought they looked confident to get the ball down and spread about. And obviously a ground where they've been very successful in European competition, but that was just one of those ones where clearly the defender's almost watching himself do it, but not being able to stop himself from doing it. His hand's there and his arm's there, and he's just kept it there and controlled it because that's easier for him without really thinking about the repercussions. And Stonewall penalty. And
Tavernier stepped up, fired it home for his 9th goal in his last 10 games. I mean, just how good is Tavernier? He's been much maligned by Rangers fans for a couple of seasons, but I think I sent you a message last night with his stats for the season. I think it was 15 appearances, 12 clean sheets, 9 goals, and 12 assists this season.
I think it was much less than this. It was maybe 5 or 6.
But it's ridiculous. We're talking about a fullback here, and that penalty last night, that was. You'll not see many better penalties than that. I know the goalkeeper got a hand to it, but he wasn't keeping that out. He could have probably got 2 hands to that one. And the pace in the ball that was going in. It was so well positioned. It was so well hit. And I know Tavernier kind of lost his confidence last season on penalties. He stepped back from them. He's got every bit of that back now, and it's probably fair to say he's in the best form of his career, bar none, just now.
Yeah, I'm sort of pleased to say that I've been a member of his fan club for several years, despite all the flack. And I just think he's an incredible athlete, first and foremost, and that's always been the case. It's just so clear watching him that his fitness levels are incredible, his work rate is incredible. And I think now, he's sometimes you're not really sure what you're going to get in terms of deliveries, but as we've touched on before, it's because he gets himself in those positions so often. That sometimes there are crosses that don't beat the first man, but at the minute he's just producing basically with everything he does. And I think it was in the Old Firm maybe that, where he wasn't directly involved, the goals obviously coming from Goldson, but it's his passing is so impressive to me. It's that driven ball into the midfielder, into the man in front of him, and then that willingness to get on the end of it is so impressive. And he's just so clinical at the minute. I think it's just very clear that Rangers had struggles. It was fair enough that he was taking off penalties last year after several misses, but it just became clear afterwards that there was no one better for the job, as several others missed. And I think now, with the confidence he has at the minute, there's definitely no one better to be taking it. I think when you watched was looking at the slow-mo of the penalty last night, it was pretty clear what side he was going to go. Mm-hmm. I don't think he disguised that. It's a short run-up, and the arc of his body could only really put it that one way, but it doesn't really matter if you telegraph where it's going, if you stick it right in the corner of a pace. And it was really important again, a big moment in the game. It was really important finish from him, obviously in a sort of defining moment in the game. And he also then, but the thing is, it's away from home in a European game, and you've got the lead, but he's still the man bombing forward, creating stuff, and that lovely little sort of dinked through ball to Morelos that he wasted with a chance and creating stuff for everyone else. He's brilliant, and I think the key thing that's going to keep people off his back as well is the lack of defensive mistakes at the minute. He was sort of called upon from the off, and then a couple of times afterwards, and there's just been no sort of let up in his performance at either end of the pitch in recent weeks. So yeah, absolutely fantastic again.
Then there's the second goal. So the one that Gerrard has described as the best goal he's ever seen live, which, thinking about that's a hell of a statement, because I was thinking about some of the goals that Gerrard's been involved in or just simply played in. And there's some absolute crackers. And I mean, the obvious one that jumps out was Beckham's free kick against Greece, the World Cup with England. And for him to kind of put that in, Xabi Alonso's got a few, Torres got a few at Liverpool, it was just phenomenal. And Gerrard was there for all of them. So he kind of put that onto Roofe's strike last night. It just shows you just how impressive it was. And for me, the odd bit about it is that the finish itself probably isn't the most impressive bit for me. It's the way that he makes the space, because he's got three men challenging him at halfway. He gets clearly two challenges, he beats a third. And only then is it that he decides, no, I'm going to take my chance here, and fires home for, was it 54.6 yards, which is the longest goal ever scored in the Europa League or the UEFA Cup. So it's a hell of a goal. And it also happened to spark some kind of afters. The Standard Liege players thought he'd made an Anderlecht symbol. I think it's a celebration he does for his kids. But one of the Standard Liege players again, have come out after the game and been like, oh, he's made this symbol and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we got a bit of a rammy at the end of it, but just what a goal that was.
Yeah, sometimes there's plenty of people are quick to draw the comparisons with Gerrard's playing career, whilst he's manager at Rangers, and some of it's pretty tiresome. I feel like it's not relevant, but for him to come out there and draw on his own experience and obviously the fantastic career that he had, and to say that's the best goal he's ever seen live is incredible. And sort of his rationale about it, that he was talking in the press conference and Friday morning, saying that he's seen Alonso, he's seen Rooney, he's seen Suarez produce like moments of brilliance from the halfway line, but none of those goals involved beating three players before he did it. And I think, as you say, that's arguably, it's not quite the same, but it's close to as impressive as the finish itself, because I think particularly because of how much Morelos struggled to hold the ball up for the whole game, that you actually had this one man on his own who was prepared to get the ball down, show strength, show close control, show ability and like awareness of space, all those things at once to get away from three players. And then I think as people picked up on the little look towards the keeper to see really is it on or not, and I think which was maybe something that you don't think about so often from it. Obviously you think about the measured nature of the finish, but the sheer power that he exerts on the ball from there, because he's at that point he's almost slowed to a stand and start, and he just like absolutely creams it, and yeah, basically lands on the goal line or just behind, which just makes it even better. And it was one of those ones where it comes off, and obviously it comes off his foot, and the cameraman is obviously not expecting it, and he's taking a little bit of time to catch up with it. So by the time that the keeper's in shot, you're thinking to yourself, I might be going in. And then as soon as you see the keeper, he's just floundering and it's clearly going over him. So yeah, it's unbelievable. And for a guy who's been out for a month, as soon as I saw him stripped on the sidelines, I just thought this is a recipe for disaster. He's just been out with a calf injury for a month, and the pitch is an absolute state. And we're sending him on for 15 minutes at the end here, and it's going to be a disaster. He's going to do it again, but he worked really hard. He looked really sharp, so he's clearly had a bit more training than maybe people realised that he had, and the finish is just incredible. And for him, in terms of, it's a big move and disappointed to be out for a while, but that's now his third goal. And, as Gerrard says, he'll hopefully be building up match fitness and be really important for the rest of the season. But the quality is clear from that finish. It's just next level. And I think it's brought even more sort of attention to Rangers' European exploits, and to him as a player has raised his profile massively.
I think as well, once you take the conditions into account as well, it makes it that bit more impressive. It's not as if he was on a perfectly manicured bowling green pitch and he's managed to do it. It's been a pitch that was absolutely sodden. The ball literally wasn't moving in certain parts of the surface. So, we've seen it in the last 5-10 minutes of the game where there was one you pointed out before we started recording with Ryan Kent, where he tried to kind of run and drag the ball with him. And the ball stayed and the player went. And, that kind of summed up probably the last 10-15 minutes of the game. It was a case of getting to the end. So for Roofe to kind of bring that little bit of brilliance out, it was just something incredible. And we see with the reaction it's getting today, it's getting worldwide press, it's players all around the world are putting it up on their social media saying wow, and it's just something else. The one issue I have with it though, and I'll always have a wee negative.
Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
There's been lots of chat that it's the best goal Rangers have ever scored, and I know it's not. Sorry, but it's not.
You're going back through the archives now here, 1924.
No, even more recent ones. Like, as great a piece of individual skill as it was, and as well as it done to beat the three men, there is a huge slice of luck involved in that. He's taken a chance from 55 yards, and the keeper's one step further back, and he gets it. It's I'm always a little bit sceptical of really long distance strikes, because more often than not, it's not purely down to the attacking players' ingenuity and genius. There's always two sides to it. The goalkeeper is almost always slightly out of position or gets his footing wrong or something like that. I think if you look at most goals for that distance, Beckham against Sunderland, Neil Sullivan for Wimbledon being a kind of prime example, a little bit off his line. We've seen it with the keeper last night, he's a little bit off his line and then bizarrely pretended to have cramp because I don't know, he had cramp. As I said, a fantastic goal, but I don't think Cooper in the Driver Cup final is the obvious one for me. There's a Gascoigne against Aberdeen in 8 in a row. For me, Gascoigne's second against Aberdeen in 8 in a row game is, bar none, the greatest goal I've ever seen scored by a Rangers player. And that was one where we've all seen it. We all know exactly what goal I'm talking about. And that one, for me, it was more what the striker or the Rangers player done to create that opportunity and less on the goalkeeper or defenders being at fault. Whereas with Roofes, there's a little bit of both camps for me. No, I'm not going to take away from it too much, but it's not the best goal Rangers ever scored. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. Just no having.
I think, well, in terms of seeing stuff live and the impact of those goals live, you have a bit more experience than me, being a bit older, but I don't know.
Let me forget my age, Aries.
I just don't. I just don't think it's so, when you're obviously, there's an element of, I don't even know if there's an element of luck to it. I just find it's such a pure strike, and it was so clear that he knew what he was doing. I think in other cases, I can maybe think of, say, the Rooney goal from distance against West Ham. I think that was a couple of years ago, or I think he might have been still at United then. That was one where it bounced like considerably outside the goal line, like it bounced in the box after the keeper, I think, fell over. But this one to me is that it's only natural for the keeper. Like, the keeper's not going to be rooted to his line when his team are pressed that high up the pitch. So for me, it wasn't as if, it's ridiculous, like he's 40 yards from his goal and is then scrambling back. I just thought that he had a very narrow window to get that over him. And the fact that it landed on the line or just behind was incredible. So I can sort of say with relative confidence it's the best goal I've ever seen a Rangers player score.
I'll let you young pups away with it. So just moving on for that, we saw Borna Barisic.
Sorry, hold
to. We were the Barisic, yeah. So we saw Borna Barisic limping out shortly before half time. It doesn't look like it's anything serious based on Gerrard's quotes after the game and again on Friday morning. I think it's looking like it's just going to be a kind of wee niggly thing. But we saw Calvin Bassey get a good run out last night, and the former Leicester kid really impressed. He came to Rangers with no experience whatsoever in senior first team football. I think that's his third or fourth competitive appearance now. And I think it's fair to say, barely, if at all, put a foot wrong. And he really looks like there's a really shrewd find there from the Rangers scouting staff.
Yeah, that's more impressive, I feel, than seeing a guy score 25 goals in a European League and saying that he'll do a good job at Rangers. If it's a guy who's not played any senior football and you're plucking him from the Leicester under 21s or 23s, I think it was, playing the Premier League 2, is really impressive that you can bring guys in that can make a difference. I felt that sort of at the start of the season, and still do to an extent, that the fullback areas are obviously Rangers' strongest first up, but in terms of depth, there's not a huge amount there. So especially at right back with Nathan Patterson, who's a great prospect, but the difference that there would be between Tav playing and him being out with a semi-serious injury for a month or two, and having Patterson there, who is again very inexperienced. And I think Graham Murray spoke last season. I was at that UEFA Youth League game when he really struggled against Rodrigo Riquelme, who's obviously a very good player, but there might be a bit of a drop off there with Bassey. I think that was, a really encouraging showing, in that there may not be much of a drop off. So you're always going to miss Barisic's quality delivery. No one's really going to bring you that unless it's a really, really high quality purchase for a lot of money. But Bassey's power then sort of offsets that slightly, because he can certainly get into those positions to start off with down the wing with his powerful running. And yeah, he sort of came in, and it was the 43rd minute or something he came on in, but he still had about 3 or 4 things to do before half time. It did them all really well. I think that obviously sort of gave him a boost going into the second half. He had I think showed a bit of an experience with sort of flicking the ball into the stand to get the booking, because there was still 25 minutes left. And that could have been costly in terms of, if you're up against attackers who are pressing for a winner, you could easily give away a second yellow and then leave your team one man down. But yeah, it's his 6th game he's ever played, 6th ever appearance in senior football. So really impressive, and he just didn't show any fear. I mean, he's very powerful, athletic, and just settled in well defensively and attacking wise. So if Barisic misses the weekend's game, if he misses the Lech Poznan game, it shouldn't be too massive an issue with Bassey there.
Just to wrap up on the game itself last night, I'm going to put in the spot a little bit, because I quite enjoy putting these in the spot.
Yeah.
Your man of the match for last night?
Oh, I haven't even thought about that actually. No, I did. I thought about it actually during the game, because I did the player ratings. And I think it's Tav again. Just the guy is so instrumental to everything the team does, and it's another one where he scored. He has scored the crucial goal in the game of the 2, even though it's not the most spectacular in the game, and helped keep a clean sheet, and was very important down the right side. So yeah, I thought Ryan Jack did very well coming back into the team. Scott Arfield worked really hard, but in terms of a mixture of quality and results and impact on the game, we'll go Tavernier.
So just final thing, just in the other game in the groups, Benfica picked up a 4-2 win against Lech Poznan. Rangers welcome the Polish side to Ibrox next week in their second group game. It's a really positive start this year, and we must really be looking at, you take 3 points from Poznan next week, and qualification is very, very much on the table for Rangers.
Yeah, it's probably better that in terms of a qualification point of view, Rangers will want to win the group, but it's probably better that Benfica beat the other teams as well, and you just have one who stands out from the crowd. It makes it less tight, obviously, when you get to the back end of the group. And yeah, it's obviously an expected result. Probably Benfica going there, although it certainly wasn't easy. I think it was back and forth a bit, and then they pulled away at the end, a hat trick for their main striker. But yeah, it's an encouraging start, and Benfica were obviously the sort of danger side when you picked it out, and the fact that Rangers have went to Belgium, or have gone to Belgium and won, suggests that they can certainly do the same at Ibrox. I think Lech Poznan have had a very indifferent start to the league, their league campaign, obviously losing their first game there, and come to Ibrox, as we know, there's obviously not going to be the fan backing that sort of Standard Liege benefited from a little bit on Thursday night. But having beaten Galatasaray at home, and now I've won 4 consecutive European games with those qualifiers as well, Rangers are going to be massive favourites.
Now, just something I said to Cammy on the preview for the Standard game, and I'm just going to want to get your thoughts on it quickly just before we wrap up. One of the things that I'd said was, personally, I feel that all 6 games in this group are eminently winnable for Rangers. I don't think, this is including going away to Benfica. I think when you look at how Rangers have performed in Europe over the last 2 seasons under Steven Gerrard, there's nobody in this group, or arguably even the competition at the minute, that you would really look at and go, we can't go and play them, they'll destroy us. You look at some of the Champions League teams and some of the proper elite sides, you're always looking at those games and you're going, that could be a cricket score if we get them. For me, I don't think there's anybody in the Europa League whatsoever that you look at them and you genuinely think that that's a team who are, over the course of 90 minutes, that are levels above where Rangers are just now. I don't know, am I kind of speaking out of school a bit there, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably need to go through individually all the teams and maybe give it a bit more thought. But certainly last year, it was pretty clear that Bayer Leverkusen was a step too far. They were a better side technically in terms of depth and the quality they had. And I'm pretty sure they beat Nice 6-2 last night, which is a massive result. It's a hammering for a pretty established French team. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I certainly think that there is no reason that Rangers can't think going into all these games. I'm not going to say they're going to win all of their group matches, but there's no reason that they can't think that they can go into this. They competed very much across the 90 minutes and drew at Porto in the group stages, beat Braga away, and Benfica aren't much better than those sides. They're not going to offer a huge amount more than those sides that they play regularly in domestic football. So yeah, there's no reason that Rangers can't win the group, but I think the priority for me, the whole thing here is that this is probably the more exciting. A win over Standard Liège on Thursday night is more exciting than beating Livingston at Ibrox on Sunday, but it's less important. So if it comes to Thursday night and Barisic isn't fit and he fancies giving McLaughlin a go because he's not going to get a chance to show him in the league, and he wants to keep everyone fresh and he wants to make a few changes, then I don't think he should be begrudged for that. I think this is a thing where you look to get as many points as possible, but the main thing is qualifying, not winning the group. So if you need to manage it, that's fine. But look, Rangers need to do well in the competition, but the priority is the league. So yeah, there's very few. The way Rangers are playing at the minute and the depth in the squad, I think there's so much quality there that they will give most teams a game. And there's teams playing in the Champions League group stages that Rangers would fancy themselves to beat. Certainly not all of them though, and there are probably sides in the Europa League where you look at it and say it's unlikely that Rangers will be able to get to the real ladder stages of the competition. But yeah, it's one where there's certainly scope for them to get to where they got to last year and beyond. But it's just the start, and they need to build on that. And consistency over a long period is the key. But they've certainly got all the tools to do it.
Fantastic. Well, that's all we've got time for this episode. Remember to like and subscribe, have a look back through some of our previous videos, and we'll be back with some build-up and reaction to this weekend's clash with Livingston in the Scottish Premiership. Thanks for watching.